Your protagonist arrives at Blackridge Rehabilitation Center, an abandoned hospital hidden deep inside a fog-covered mountain valley. The facility was shut down 15 years ago after a mysterious mass disappearance of both patients and staff. Local legends say the hospital wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by something older, something that fed on fear and silence. As your protagonist steps through the rusted metal doors, the smell of damp walls and old disinfectant fills the air. The flickering flashlight beam reveals peeling paint, smashed wheelchairs, and dark stains smeared across the floor like old shadows that refuse to fade. Every step echoes down the empty corridor, but sometimes the echo doesn't match the step. Sometimes it comes half a second late, sometimes too early. Moving deeper, they find patient rooms frozen in time, beds still unmade, notes still pinned on walls, personal belongings left behind as if everyone vanished in the middle of a breath. But the strangest thing is the mirrors. Every room has one. Every mirror has scratches on the inside of the glass, as if something was trying to claw its way out. As your protagonist examines one of the mirrors, they notice something horrifying. Their reflection isn't copying their movements. It smiles. Then it raises its hand. Then it steps closer to the glass, pressing its face against it like a trapped animal. The moment they step back, the reflection sinks into darkness and disappears entirely. Throughout the hospital, strange sounds begin to follow them: wet breathing, a dragging footstep, a faint whisper of their name. Rooms change when they turn around. Hallways grow longer. Lights flicker off one by one behind them, as if the darkness is chasing their back. They discover a locked wing, Ward C, the psychiatric unit where the most unstable patients were kept. Breaking inside, they find files describing a patient known only as Subject 17, a boy who never cast a shadow, never spoke, and never slept. He would stand in front of mirrors for hours, smiling. The final entry reads, "He keeps telling us the mirrors are hungry. He keeps saying we should stop looking into them. He keeps laughing when the lights go out." As your protagonist reads this, their flashlight dies, total darkness, then a breath on their neck, a cold finger brushing their wrist, a whisper, "Don't look behind you." But the mirrors around the room begin to glow faintly, revealing dozens of reflections staring back, none matching the protagonist's movements. Each reflection slowly lifts its hand, pointing at something standing just a few inches behind them. The prompt ends as your protagonist turns around and sees a tall, hollow-eyed figure with no shadow and a smile too wide for any human face. Your protagonist travels with two friends to an isolated wooden cabin in the middle of Ravenwood Forest, a place known for strange disappearances and unexplained cries heard at night. The locals warned them never to stay after sunset, never to wander alone, and most importantly, never to go near the old well behind the cabin. But they ignore every warning, believing the stories are nothing more than rural myths meant to scare outsiders. The first night seems normal. They cook dinner, play music, laugh, and enjoy the freedom away from the city. But just after midnight, the forest goes unnaturally silent. No wind, no insects, no rustling leaves. Then they hear it, a slow, rhythmic knocking coming from beneath the wooden floorboards. 3 knocks, silence, 3 more. They assume it's an animal until the knocks begin to travel across the cabin floor, following their footsteps as if something underground is tracking them. When they shine a flashlight between the cracks, they see something impossible: a pale, thin finger sliding between the boards before vanishing into the darkness. The next morning, they investigate the old well. Thick vines wrap around it like veins. A cold mist rises from inside despite the warm daylight. The air smells metallic, like blood mixed with wet soil. Attached to the well's stone rim are long claw marks, fresh, deep, as if something tried climbing out recently. One of the friends, Mark, hears whispers coming from inside, a child's voice calling his name. He swears he saw a small hand reaching upward. When the others pull him away, he screams that the child needs help, but the well returns to silence, as if mocking them. Inside the cabin, things get worse. They find muddy footprints on the walls, doors open by themselves. Shadows crawl along the ceiling even when no one is moving. At night, something drags its nails across the underside of the cabin, circling, 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 never stopping. On the third night, everything explodes into terror. The floorboards split open like cracking bones. From the darkness beneath, a long, deformed arm reaches out, followed by another. Then a head, wrong, twisted, stretched, like it had been pressed underground for years. Its eyes are milky white, its jaw hangs loose, its skin drips mud. It speaks in that same childlike voice. "You heard me knocking." The creature crawls upward with unnatural speed, pulling itself into the cabin with limbs bending the wrong way. It moves like it's learning how to be alive again. The friends run, but the forest outside shifts. Trees twist, paths disappear, and the shadows of branches turn into clawed hands trying to grab them. One by one, the forest swallows the group until only the protagonist remains, sprinting toward the road. But just as they reach the tree line, everything goes silent again, and the knocking begins behind them. 3 knocks. Silence. 3 more, your protagonist moves into a cheap rented room in an old apartment building known as Hawthorne Complex, a place with peeling paint, flickering hall lights, and neighbors who refuse to speak after sundown. The landlord gives only one warning while handing over the keys. If you hear whispers at night, don't answer. At first, your protagonist laughs it off. Urban legends, nothing more. But on the first night, as the building settles into silence, they hear it, a faint, breathy whisper coming from inside the walls. Not words, just a soft, shivering sound like someone exhaling slowly right beside their ear. They search the room. Nothing, no openings, no cracks, no vents. Yet the whisper returns every night a little louder, a little closer. Soon it begins forming words. Are you awake? The voice is thin, trembling, almost pleading, like a child lost in the dark. Your protagonist tries to ignore it, but the whisper grows desperate. Please answer me. They cover their ears. They play loud music. They leave the lights on. But the whisper slips through everything, vibrating inside their skull like it's speaking from the inside instead of the outside. Neighbors avoid eye contact. When asked about the whisper, they close their doors immediately. One old tenant finally mutters, "Don't respond, that's how it finds you." As days pass, the apartment begins to change. Shadows linger longer than they should. The corners of the room grow darker, as if filled with thick liquid darkness. Objects move when the protagonist isn't looking. The mirror fogs up by itself, and a small handprint appears on the glass, too small to belong to any adult. The whisper grows bold. It speaks clearly now. Turn around. I'm right here. Why won't you talk to me? One night, the protagonist snaps and screams back. What do you want? The whisper stops. Silence. Then, from behind them, from a shadow that wasn't there before, a voice answers. Finally, you heard me. The room temperature drops instantly. The lights flicker violently and go out. In the pitch darkness, footsteps scrape across the floor, slow, dragging steps, as if something is crawling more than walking. Your protagonist shines a flashlight, but the beam bends unnaturally, refusing to illuminate the corners of the room. In one corner, a hunched figure twitches, its bones cracking loudly as it turns its head. Its face is wrong, jaw displaced, eyes sunken deep, mouth stretched into a trembling smile. Its voice is now directly inside the protagonist's ear. I've been waiting so long for someone to answer. The creature lunges forward, limbs bending at impossible angles, crawling across the ceiling and walls like a starving insect. Every time the protagonist looks away for even a second, it appears closer, its breath cold, its whispers vibrating in their spine. The story ends as the protagonist stumbles into the hallway, screaming for help. Every door stays shut. But from inside each apartment, the same whisper echoes. Your protagonist moves into an old, dusty family house after the death of a distant relative they barely knew. The house is quiet, cold, and smells of old wood and forgotten time. But what stands out most is the locked door at the end of the hallway. The key is missing. The will mentions nothing about it, and the family says there is no room there. That door leads nowhere. But every night your protagonist hears soft thumping from behind it. Not random noises, 3 slow knocks. A pause, then 3 more. One night, unable to resist curiosity, they press their ear against the wood. There is breathing on the other side. Slow, wet, uneven, too close like someone's lips are just an inch from the door, whispering through the cracks. In the morning, the door looks different. Scratches appear, long, deep claw marks, as if something inside tried to dig its way out. Dust gathers on the floor except for a clear trail leading from the locked door toward the protagonist's bedroom. The family photos in the hallway begin changing. At first they appear normal, smiling faces of relatives from decades ago. But each day one face disappears from a frame. Not scratched out, not faded, gone, leaving only a blurry silhouette. Soon the silhouettes start facing the hallway door, pointing at it silently. Your protagonist finally finds an old, rusted key hidden inside a loose floorboard. The moment they touch it, the house creaks loudly, as if exhaling. The air turns colder, shadows lengthen on the walls. That night the knocking stops. But a new sound begins, a fingernail slowly tapping the door from the inside. Tap, 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 they unlock the door. Inside is a small, windowless room covered in peeling wallpaper. A rocking chair stands in the center, still moving slightly even though nobody touched it. On the walls are hundreds of handprints, tiny ones, large ones, some smeared, some pressed deep into the plaster as if someone pushed with all their strength. There is also a mirror, but it doesn't show the protagonist's reflection. It shows the room behind them. Only in the reflection, someone is standing right behind their shoulder. A tall, thin figure with hollow eyes and a mouth stretched unnaturally wide. When they spin around, the room is empty. The mirror cracks by itself. From the corner of the room, the rocking chair stops, then slowly starts rocking again in the opposite direction. Your protagonist tries to leave, but the door slams shut. The lights flicker and die. The air fills with the sound of many breaths, hundreds of them coming from the walls themselves. Whispers flood the room. "We were here first. You opened the door. Now you can never leave us." Hands begin emerging from the walls, pale, long-fingered, claw-like, grabbing at the protagonist's clothes and skin. The floorboards bulge as something tries to push up from underneath. The prompt ends as the protagonist screams for help. But outside the hallway, the house stands silent, empty, and still. Your protagonist works the night shift as a bus driver on the Route 13 midnight line, a route most drivers avoid because of the strange sightings, phantom passengers, and unexplained radio static that occurs between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock a.m. But your protagonist doesn't believe in ghost stories until one night everything changes. At exactly 2:07 a.m., the bus stops at an empty station in the middle of nowhere. According to the timetable, nobody ever boards here. The place is abandoned, broken lights, dusty benches, and a vending machine that hasn't worked in years. But tonight, as the doors open with a hiss, someone steps in. A woman dressed in old-fashioned clothes, white dress, bare feet, hair covering her face. She sits in the very back seat without saying a word. No footsteps, no sound, just appears inside like a shadow sliding into existence. Your protagonist checks the mirror. The seat is empty. But the air behind them feels heavier, colder. They continue driving, uneasy. The radio crackles with static. A faint whisper rises from it, almost like someone breathing directly into the microphone. The message repeats, "Don't look back, don't look back." But the urge to check the mirror grows stronger. At the next stop, an old man boards the bus. He looks terrified, clutching a rosary. He sits near the front and whispers to the driver, "Don't stop the bus, no matter what you hear." As they drive forward, strange things start happening. Seats creak as if someone is moving. Cold fingers brush the back of the driver's neck. The headlights flicker, revealing silhouettes running alongside the bus, twisted figures with too long limbs, keeping up effortlessly, tapping their nails against the windows. The old man begins to pray. Suddenly, every light inside the bus goes out. Absolute darkness. The engine sputters, the bus slows. Something begins walking down the aisle, bare feet on metal flooring, slow and deliberate. The old man starts shaking violently, whispering, "She's choosing, she always chooses." Your protagonist hears breathing directly behind their seat. A cold, damp hand rests on their shoulder. A voice, soft, childlike yet wrong, whispers, "Look at me." The old man screams, "Don't turn around." But the bus lurches violently, throwing him to the floor. He begins crawling toward the driver, blood dripping from scratches that appear across his back without anything touching him. The hand squeezes tighter. The whisper becomes a growl. The temperature drops so low frost forms on the steering wheel. When the protagonist finally musters the courage to glance at the mirror, they see her. A pale, distorted figure looming over them, her smile stretching unnaturally wide, eyes black and hollow. Behind her, dozens of faces press against the windows from the outside, lost passengers forever trapped. The bus suddenly fills with screams, men, women, children, all shouting the same words. "You're next, you're next." The prompt ends as the bus hurtles into a tunnel of darkness, the reflection of the ghost woman reaching out of the mirror toward the protagonist. Your protagonist moves into a temporary rental apartment after losing their job. It's cheap, quiet, and slightly damaged, but manageable. Only one thing is strange. There is a small wooden door on the wall beside the bed, too small for a person, too large to be decoration. The landlord claims it's sealed shut and nothing to worry about. But the first night, your protagonist wakes at 3:17 a.m. to a soft creaking sound. The small door is now slightly open. A cold draft seeps out, smelling like soil and something rotten. When they shine a flashlight inside, they see nothing, just darkness so thick it feels alive. The moment they stand up to close it, the door slams shut on its own. Over the next few nights, the door keeps opening a few inches. Sometimes the protagonist finds tiny footprints on the floor. Sometimes they hear faint giggling coming from inside the walls. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, the room grows so cold their breath fogs the air. One morning, a new horror appears. The small door isn't on the wall anymore. It has moved. Now it's on the opposite wall, closer to the bed. Each day, it shifts location. Left wall, right wall, ceiling, floor, like it's trying to find the best angle from which to watch the protagonist sleep. At night, the sound of fingernails tapping from inside grows louder. Tap, tap, tap. Let me out! The protagonist tries sealing it with tape, nails, even furniture. But every night it appears again, closer than before. One night it moves to the foot of the bed. Another night it appears under the pillow. Meanwhile, the apartment begins to distort. Hallways stretch longer. The lights flicker endlessly. The mirror starts showing figures standing behind the protagonist, figures that vanish when they turn around. Shadows begin crawling up the walls like insects. The final night begins with silence. No tapping, no giggling, no cold draft, too quiet. When the protagonist opens their eyes, the small door is now directly above them on the ceiling, wide open. A long, pale arm reaches out, fingers bending like broken branches. Another hand follows, then a face emerges. A childlike face, but the eyes are hollow black pits. The mouth is too wide. And the voice is wrong. "I've been looking for you." The creature crawls out, moving upside down across the ceiling with unsettling speed. Its limbs stretch unnaturally. Its smile grows bigger, tearing the skin around the lips. The protagonist runs for the exit, but every door in the apartment transforms into the same small wooden door. Hundreds of them, covering every surface, opening and closing rapidly like breathing mouths. From all around, whispers hiss. "Come inside, stay with us. We've been waiting." The floor cracks open. Darkness pours out like liquid. Hands reach from beneath, too many hands, pulling, grabbing, dragging. The last thing the protagonist sees is the small door stretching into a massive, gaping doorway. And the creature smiling from inside your protagonist visits an old rural town, surrounded by thick pine forests, and a massive, silent lake called Drowning Mirror Lake. Locals avoid it. They say the water remembers voices and gives them back at night. But your protagonist doesn't believe it, not until the first evening. As the sun sets, the lake's surface becomes perfectly still, smooth like black glass. And then, faintly through the wind, they hear something echo across the water, a voice, calling their name. Thinking someone needs help, they walk closer. But the voice doesn't come from above the water. It comes from underneath it, deep below, muffled, trembling like someone trapped beneath ice. That night at the cabin, the voice follows them. It echoes through the window, through the walls, through the floorboards. Sometimes it sounds like a child. Sometimes like an old man. Sometimes like their own voice crying for help. "Let me out, please, it's dark." The next day, they meet an elderly woman who warns. "If it knows your name, it already has you." She explains that decades ago, a group of people drowned mysteriously in that lake, all found floating with their mouths wide open, as if screaming. But the strange part was their lungs. No water inside, as if they hadn't drowned at all. That night, the protagonist wakes to the sound of knocking on the window from the outside. They open the curtain and freeze. Something is standing in the water, a human-like shape, tall and thin, with its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its skin is drenched, dripping lakeweed. Its eyes are milky white, and its mouth moves silently, like it's trying to speak, but no sound comes out. Then from below the cabin floor, the same voice whispers, "I found you." Footprints appear, wet and muddy, leading from the door to their bed. But the door was locked all night. The creature begins appearing closer each time, outside the window, then at the door, then standing at the foot of the bed for a split second before vanishing. The lake becomes louder every night. Thousands of voices rise from underneath, begging, screaming, laughing. Sometimes they chant the protagonist's name. Sometimes they mock their breathing. Sometimes they cry like someone in pain. One evening, unable to bear it anymore, the protagonist approaches the lake and screams, asking what it wants. The surface ripples, and a whisper answers, "Come down, we're waiting." Hands made of water rise from the lake, fingers long and dripping. Shadows pull at their legs. Reflection in the lake shows dozens of faces behind them, pale, drowned, eyes wide open. The protagonist runs, but the forest path twists endlessly, trees bending like ribs closing around them. The lake's whisper follows, louder, angrier, more desperate. Don't leave, come back." The story ends as the protagonist looks back and sees the water pulling itself up the path, crawling toward them like a living creature. And from its depths, their own voice screams, Your protagonist buys an extremely cheap old house in a quiet countryside town. Everyone in the area avoids it. Whenever the protagonist asks why, people only give one warning. Don't stay in any room after the walls start watching. They laugh at it, thinking it's just superstition. But the first night changes everything. As they unpack, the lights flicker. The air grows heavy, thick with dust and a strange sweetness, like decaying flowers. When the protagonist sets a box down, they feel something odd. The walls are warm, almost like skin. At midnight, they hear a soft scraping noise. SKKK, 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 like fingernails dragging gently across the plaster. They assume it's mice. But when they put their ear to the wall, they don't hear scratching. They hear breathing. The next morning, the house looks different. The wallpaper is bubbling outward slightly, bulging as if something is pressing from inside. They poke one of the bubbles and it pulses like a heartbeat. Later, as they walk down the hallway, they feel eyes on them. The sensation grows stronger each time they pass the living room doorway. When they finally turn on the lights, they freeze. The wallpaper pattern has changed overnight. Now it looks like faces, stretched and distorted, mouths frozen in silent screams, eyes bulging as if trying to warn them. When the protagonist blinks, the expressions shift, some smiling, some frowning, some crying blood. That night, the real horror begins. At 3:12 a.m., they wake to the sound of whispering, not from outside, not from another room, but from every wall. The voices are layered, hundreds of them all speaking at once. Don't move. It sees you. Don't breathe. It's hungry. The bedroom walls begin to ripple like liquid. A bulge forms near the ceiling, stretching downward, taking shape. Growing arms, legs, and a face pressed tightly behind the surface, as if trapped beneath thin skin. The face opens its mouth wide. A scream vibrates through the walls, silent but felt in the bones. The protagonist runs to the front door. It's gone. The hallway stretches infinitely, the house rearranging itself like a maze. Every door leads to the same room. Every window shows the same darkness. And the walls whisper louder, "Stay with us. We've been alone too long." Suddenly, the wallpaper tears open and a pale hand shoots out, grabbing their wrist. Another hand follows. Then a face, wet pale, eyes black and endless, pushes through the wall like it's made of water. More hands emerge, more faces. The house is filled with them, hundreds of trapped souls trying to escape, crawling from the walls, from the ceiling, from the floor. The protagonist screams and sprints toward what used to be the exit, only to find a new door in the wall. A door they've never seen. It slowly opens by itself. Inside is pure darkness, and two glowing eyes staring back. The house whispers one last time, "Welcome home." The protagonist is pulled inside. The door slams shut. The walls go silent. You lock your bedroom door every night, but every morning it is wide open. One night you decide to pretend to sleep and wait for whatever opens it. People say the Blackpine Forest returns whatever you lose, but not in the same shape. When your little brother disappears, the forest gives him back, different. You're working the night shift in a hospital. One wing has been closed for 20 years. But tonight, you see lights turning on inside it, and shadows moving at midnight. You receive a call. It's your own voice warning you not to open your front door. The problem is, someone is already knocking. You find a hidden room in your house. The walls are covered in hundreds of human-like eyes. When you turn off your flashlight, they open. You visit a town where no mirrors exist. People say reflections attract something dangerous. When you accidentally see your reflection in a car window, it smiles back. 8. The shadow that doesn't belong to you. Walking home at night, you notice your shadow is moving a little slower than you. When you stop, it keeps walking, getting closer to you if you want.